Well, I guess we're not doing the intro again.
Oh,
Oh
really?
my God.
What
Okay.
happened?
Yeah. What the hell? It's fine. Oh my God. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, I apologize. I'm trying to figure out my camera still, so I'll let Edo take over from here.
Oh, welcome everyone. Another
David's here
episode
too.
of the Turning Point. Didn't start as expected though. We should have the intro. David just jumped in on last
Give me
minute and
two.
Versan is without camera, so we are trying to figure it out. How are you doing, David? All good?
Good. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Second. Boy.
David, there's a reverb in your microphone. If you could please, resolve that, that'd be great.
I want to make sure I'm on my right, on the microphone, on the right.
It's funny, we're all having issues today.
I'm good.
Audio. Oh, okay. I know why. I need to be on
right there. How does that sound?
Much better.
There we go. Okay. And I can even, okay, good. Yeah, I had to switch over. Hey, wow. Guys, we're doing great. Oh, I got to stream this to my audience. Just give me 2 seconds here.
We're already live. So, Edo.
Okay, no problem. I did not know that you were live.
Yeah.
Well, meanwhile, we are having some retracement on the market. So I think we're going to talk about some of the lastest market updates. I think also we should address that USDT Tether is actually moving out new headquarters in El Salvador. So I think that's something that we can also discuss on this live streaming. The news just came out about 1.5 hours ago. I texted Versan about it. So I just first welcome. It's a proper introduction now. I think that we have the three of us on camera. We ended up skipping the intro. We just had David jumping in. Versan had no camera. So how are you guys doing today?
Great. I'm doing fabulous.
Excellent. Thank you very much for asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I like to hear. I don't like to hear I'm just doing good. I like to hear excellent, fabulous, fantastic. And it really dictates how your day is going to go, when you start with a different approach, different from what 99% of people would answer you. They just say like, I'm doing good, So I think we have a lot of topics to talk. I don't know, Versan, perhaps you want, which topic should we start discussing? Before the live, I had a quick chat with Versan. We didn't call each other, but we were talking via messages. And we both said we noticed that there are a lot of new users that are actually joining crypto, and also a lot of people who are like new XRP holders, people who yet don't fully understand the technology. So from one side, I ask a bit of patience from the ones that watch us for a long time, but we really have to touch on some subjects. Sometimes it might feel that we are going in circles, but it's actually important to notice that as our audience grows, it also grows the amount of people who are actually joining the ecosystem. And I think it's always important sometimes to refresh some informations. Combined, I think last episode we got over 100,000 views. So I want also to send a special thanks for the audience. We had a lot of people. If we combine all the channels that we had streamed, so combining my audience, David's audience, Versan's YouTube channel, my X account, and also Vandel that was here. He's not going to be here today though, but probably next week he's going to join us. So I think we should give a proper introduction about XRP. It's also a good refresh for the ones that are watching the channel for a long time, and for the ones that are actually new to the channel, I think it's a great gateway. Want to do some thoughts on that, Versan or David, who wants to start, and from there we can actually elaborate also on the newest things that happened in the last week with real stablecoin and also USDT moving out of the US.
Yeah, a lot to talk about. Well, first of all, I should start when I said excellent. If you want to have a great day, first thing you need to do is exercise. I really believe that. If you don't get enough like sunshine or exercise, you're not going to have a good day. Of course, what you eat and put in your body as well. So that kind of goes hand in hand together. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Really glad to be here. And it's just getting back into the swing of things. It really, it's very exciting for me to do what I do and what we do here with my dear friends. I mean, we're very deeply passionate about what we do, and that's investigate into the layers beneath of the narratives that are on the surface. So there's a lot going on. I think the first thing we should do is take a moment to extend our thoughts and prayers to those who have been affected by the California fires. A significant portion of this community is actually in California. So I just hope you're all staying safe. And I do want to tread very carefully about these California fires, but I think it's more than just natural disasters, as you may know. I think they're part of a much larger narrative that touches on some like orchestrated narratives and agendas of high stakes real estate deals. And if you've been paying close attention, billions of dollars are already pouring into these affected areas. And when you follow the money trail, a different kind of picture emerges. So I know there are a lot of also descriptions about these underground tunneling systems that link to the Getty Museum. And I can't dive into further details without risking censorship. So I just want to put it very simply. All these events are intricately connected into a broader agenda to, I think, push people into smart cities over the next like 5 to 10 years. So I'll leave it at that. But yeah, there's a lot going on. Do you guys want to start with Tether, perhaps? What do you think? Tether, or should we start with XRP for some of the new audiences?
I think we can start with Tether, this recent news, even though it's just 1.5 hours ago, I think.
Yeah, you know what? It's a good idea. And of course, I'll let David put his input on all this. But I think what's happening with Tether, we've been talking about this for years. The writing's been on the wall for years with Tether. As I think regulations crack down on institutions and they demand compliance, like compliance solutions. Tether is non-compliance with MiCA and some of the other frameworks that are already in place is only going to accelerate its decline. David covered this like maybe 2 months ago when we did our last podcast. And I think with the crypto markets maturing and, speculation and unregulated assets are not going to really find a place in the new paradigm. So there is a lot going on. Ripple's RLUSD, which is a tokenized version of the fiat dollar, I think that has been culminated in the years, and there's a lot of planning and strategic positioning that's been going on with Ripple for many years. You guys know this. It also aligns with some of the financial goals, which provide that compliant and transparent, reliable stablecoin solution that the World Bank has been talking about as well. So I think while Tether's exit may seem like more of a dramatic shift, we're going to get to a point where a lot of the money is going to simply flow out of Tether and move into like some of the more compliant stable coins. So yeah, RLUSD, it's more than just a stable coin. I think it's the foundation for the next chapter in digital finance. And I think by addressing the shortcomings of Tether, and that aligns with all the institutional needs. So RLUSD is going to be the backbone of the global financial ecosystem as the crypto landscape evolves. And that's just a macro view on Tether and RLUSD. So yeah.
No, I agree with that. I think that
well, first of all, did the audience catch that? If I'm speaking too fast, just let me know.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. No, I've been reading articles as well and things like that. And of course, the MiCA, regulations in the EU are putting some, heavy standards on a lot of these stable coins because, of course, they want to know that, hey, does the stable coin have the assets it needs to back, what its purported market capitalization is? And they're wanting these companies to, basically be auditable and all this and that. For whatever reason, Tether is not in a position where it can comply with these regulations. Like, what is actually backing Tether? Well, it seems to be a symbiotic relationship between Tether and Bitcoin. When you see Tether mint like a heap of Tether, it's amazing that Bitcoin almost instantaneously, the price really jumps. And this is something that I think as observers in this space, for many years. Look, we've been in this space for 5 years. You guys have been in this space a long time. Combined, we probably have well over a decade or so, maybe even a couple decades, of experience in this space. And, you cannot get around the obvious fact that, Tether is linked, to Bitcoin's success. And in fact, interestingly enough, and this really I find wild. I'm going to pull a little article up here where, and this is, you know, the CEO of Tether himself saying this, so people can actually see this themselves. Let me just share my screen here, and I'm going to present a article here. Let me just, yeah, right here. Check the title of this article out. Tether Bitcoin Unstoppable Together. And this is coming from Paolo Danino. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that, but he's the CEO of USDT. And how he basically is really touting this relationship that they have together. And I'm sorry, like for me, I think that there is something there that a lot of people, you know, are asking questions about, legitimate questions. And Brad Garlinghouse not long ago came out and said how he knows, now he's in the know to know, even though it's not publicly made known, but how the US government's investigating Tether, you know, and of course, you know, not being able to, you know, see the comply with the MiCA, you know, regulations. I do believe that RLUSD, the motivation from Ripple to come out there and actually issue their own stablecoin is to take a big bite out of this market. And a lot of people, you know, they don't really understand how stablecoins make money. But basically, as a stablecoin gets utilized, what happens is they take that stablecoin. It's kind of like a fractional reserve banking type of situation where they actually employ that into very secure investments. And the amount that they recover is in the hundreds of millions per year, just by being able to hold on, you know, be able to leverage the amounts that are being held in those various stablecoins. Well, RLUSD, knowing kind of like what's going on behind the scenes, Ripple, they want to take a big bite out of this market. Now, do I think Tether is going to collapse? I don't think that they will allow an absolute catastrophic collapse. Could it happen? I believe it could. But the reason I don't believe they'll allow it is because there's too many institutional players right now that are dealing in Tether. And I think what will happen is you'll see a slow ebbing away and decline of Tether, while at the same time RLUSD is going to pick up the pace. That's kind of how I look at the whole Tether situation.
Edo,
I
what
think
about
the
you?
big question. Yeah, I think the big question is, how is that transition going to play out? Are we going to see a massive catastrophic event? And I think it's very interesting that you point out towards Tether CEO, and he has blocked me on X for asking certain questions. So for a long time, I can't see really what's going on. Well, I have this badge. I'm really proud of being blocked by him. We know that there is this correlation between, it's very similar to what happens on the traditional financial markets, as if it was created by the same exact people, right? Because the Fed prints unlimited money, and exactly what happens when Tether gets minted and the price, there's a correlation between the price of digital assets, specifically Bitcoin going up in correlation and in response to Tethers being printed. Now, I think it's very interesting that a real stablecoin volume is actually skyrocketing. We are actually up 70. I just checked today. In the last 24 hours, it's actually up over 70%. We are reaching 144 million. And have in mind that real stablecoin hasn't even been listed on any major exchanges so far. So we haven't seen it on Binance. We haven't seen it on Coinbase. So I go totally in accordance to what David said. I really think strategically, Ripple has issued real stablecoin because it's about to capture a high fraction of this market, which is the stablecoin market. And I also recall watching Brad Garlinghouse when I was in the Paris Blockchain Week, and he was talking about stablecoins and how he was actually describing that stablecoins would be the next big thing in crypto. I remember he saying this exact same sentence when he was on stage on Paris. Now, what I think very interesting, when you go to CoinMarketCap and you go to actually watch USDT chart, you're going to notice certain differences between USDT to actually real stablecoin and also USDC. The peg is not really one-to-one, and you can constantly see that there are price fluctuations on Tether's chart, and right now is actually down, I think, 0.02%. That might seem actually a small fluctuation, but we're talking about a stablecoin. That really shouldn't happen at all. And when you compare to other stablecoins, you really understand that there are red flags about Tether. We once pointed out on this podcast, I shared the screen about Tether white paper. Do you guys remember that where there is actually explicit written on Tether's white paper that at any moment they could abscond with the customers' funds and actually just disappear, go into bankruptcy. And I think that's very suspicious as well. So as we see USDT Tether distancing itself from the more, let's say, reliable jurisdictions, the more serious ones, such as Europe, and it's not MiCA compliant, first at all. And second, is also distancing itself from the United States, is actually being investigated. It has also been fined by the competent authority. I think it's called the CTFC or the CFTC. Now I don't remember how it's
CFTC.
pronounced. Yeah, they have been fined, I think, over 30 million because they lied about the USD reserves. It's not one-to-one as they claimed in the past. That's public information, ladies and gentlemen. And I would argue that going to El Salvador, it might be setting the stage for something that might turn out as a catastrophic event, or just they're going to simply gradually decline their dominance when actually real stablecoin climbs the ladder, and we're going to really see this switch at any moment when perhaps a few months from now we have a real stablecoin entering the top 10 by market cap, perhaps even the top 3, and I think USDT is just going to shade away. The big question is it going to be a gradual transition, or we're going to have a massive black swan event? I honestly don't have the answer, but I'm watching very carefully the major red flags for Tether.
I think a black swan event is also likely. Now, we understand that USDT has served its purpose as a bridge from traditional finance into the crypto world, but it does pose significant systemic risk to the banking sector because it's lacking of reserves. So you can question that, questionable audits as well that they've been able to circumvent many times. And I think the absence of also clear regulatory frameworks makes it a liability in of itself. So if global regulators are going to tighten the noose with non-compliance with MiCA, and that's going to likely force Tether out of all the markets eventually. And that's a move that could certainly ripple across the globe, no pun intended. But unlike Tether, RLUSD is the first and only regulated institutional stablecoin that is specifically designed in alignment with the evolving financial regulations. So that's a very big positive thing there. So I think over time, as we start to see the banking sector more at risk to all this unbacked exposure, which is tied to the crypto markets because of the extreme leverage, that could be a catalyst to take a significant chunk of the market from Tether and into RLUSD. So you know how this is all playing out in real time. We've been so far ahead of the curve. It's incredible that every time these headlines are coming out, they're all coming out in a very orchestrated fashion that is strategic in alignment with the regulatory frameworks, with also the geopolitical landscape. So it's very exciting.
No, that is a very big important point. Is none of this is just happening by happenstance. I think a lot of people, of course, the way they feed information to the broader marketplace, to retail, to, is absolutely coordinated. A lot of this information and these decisions are being made way before, they're absolutely being publicized. I know that for a fact. With the CBDC in Canada, they were using since 2015. If you look this up, you can research. It's called the Jasper Project, but that wasn't publicly made available, in a way that, most people would have known about it. So, that they were going towards that end. And I do believe that in the current political environment that Canada is in, for instance, and the same with the United States, that regulatory clarity in North America is going to be the next phase. So I think it'll be, if you read Fit 21, for instance, and you get into that piece of legislation, there is a lot to be said about stablecoin regulation in there and what stablecoins are going to have to be able to comply with, very similar to the MiCA regulations. I don't think Tether's going to be able to facilitate, or be able to demonstrate compliance under Fit 21. We're talking about the Financial Innovation and Technology for the 21st Century Act that did receive House approval. And I'll always love to point out that it was 70 Democrats that had crossed the floor to support a Republican-led bill like that. So it shows you how this last election cycle, how this distributed ledger technology, this digital asset space was a huge impact. You saw a lot of these major candidates currying favor with the crypto space. And that wasn't by chance either, guys. You're talking about candidates that both of them had come out in the past to really dump on this space of how, bad it was and on and on. Now they're considering having Bitcoin as a strategic reserve. That's not by chance. So Versan, you're 100% correct. This narrative that's coming out right now, a person needs to be using their own critical thinking. They are literally, it's they're shaping. It's called social engineering, is what it's called, and they're getting us ready for what they have planned to roll out. While they didn't want anybody to really be vested in it, like we are early on. That's what's going on. And so I do see a future where RLUSD will literally be taking probably center stage when it comes to the global stablecoin. And you had brought something out many podcasts before. It won't just be RLUSD. It'll be RL yen, the real yen, the real pound, the real whatever, so that sovereign currencies will still be there, of course, but it'll be kind of through this framework and mechanism to drive the global economy, because it's going to solve the liquidity problem. It's going to solve the monetary problem. But the powers that be are wanting to continue to holding on to that power. We're talking about the central banks, let's be honest. And so I think that they're all in on it together one way or another. At least that's my opinion.
Yeah, totally agree. Edo, can I add something as well about Tether? So what I found very interesting, you guys know that revolving door between Tether and the bond market, right? And Tether's spoken about this before, that they're very big partners with the US government, and they hold the largest amount of bonds. And when we were looking at the financial markets since the last time we spoke, the markets were selling off. You guys saw that, I'm sure, right? It wasn't random, though. What I found out was that countries were actually dumping bonds worldwide. And interestingly, Tether was not purchasing those bonds. So I found that very interesting. And what's also more interesting about that is that historically, it's usually the Federal Reserve who steps in to purchase the bonds, basically buying the debt when there's a liquidity crisis arising, right? But for a few days, they held back, and I found that very interesting. And what was the result of that? The markets began to tank. And this is just a reminder to everyone here that when central banks are out of the picture to a degree, and I think they're evolving. I don't think they're actually going to go away. But when they're out and they stop buying the debt, it shows you how fragile the state of the traditional markets are. And the absence of them buying the debt can trigger widespread panic. And that's what we did see. So, what I also found interesting is that there was a trend emerging from that. If we look at the crypto volatility index on the back end, while retail investors were actually panicking and selling, and all this headlines and news about that, we saw some institutional players that were quietly buying into the cryptos that people were selling off. So the crypto, volatility index was reflecting this. And it just shows how that smart money is actually positioning itself during the times of uncertainty. So that's something everybody needs to apply to their investment strategy, buy when there's blood on the street, essentially, and sell when there's greed and pandemonium, so, yeah.
And I think before we jump on the next subject, I want also to share two quick thoughts, especially about Tether. One is that since they halted the trading, I think it hasn't been minted in like 2 weeks. We already see a correction on the market. So you can see that this correlation is still playing out. And that has been like that since I am in crypto, basically. And number two is very interesting how there is a scarcity of information about Tether on the market. So if you want to find about the inconsistencies about Tether, you really need to actually go very deep. And I was just doing a research before we get here on the live streaming. And most of the cases I was coming back towards us. So when I would go to Google, for example, and search something about Tether, I would find our previous videos. I would find old posts of myself on X. I would find interview that me and Versan, we brought one of the experts on the subject. I'm not sure if you remember Dr. Marco.
Yeah. I do.
It was from, yeah. So
fun.
we brought Dr. Marco is one of them. So it's really not very popular, especially for content creators to touch in such a sensitive topic, which is about USDT. So you will see that 99% of them, especially the ones that are driven towards BTC and that are creating the content about Bitcoin, they will simply ignore because it goes against the narrative. They know that's a threat for the system and they really don't want to touch on the subject. So I would really be advising the audience to be careful. I mean, simply because nobody's talking about it, it just doesn't mean you should ignore it. Just like nobody was talking about UST to suddenly go to zero. Nobody was talking about Luna going to zero, but you had all the mainstream creators who were actually pushing the narrative about Luna, UST, even FTX, if you want to go a bit beyond. And suddenly one day, everyone wake up and UST went to zero. So I would really advise people. I do have other reasons I can't really mention on public, but I really advise to not hold any USDT. I mean, there's not a reason for that. You have better alternatives, safer alternatives. One of them is real stablecoin. I am also an enthusiast of USDC. I think Circle is a serious company, and I think if you really have to hold stablecoins, I think you should not be holding USDT. That's my final thoughts on Tether.
Yeah, final thoughts on Tether or stablecoins in general is just hold. If you want to park your money in a digital asset, make sure that's regulated. That's it. If you're with regulated stablecoins, you're going to be fine because that aligns with the framework. Pretty much.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So, what's next?
That's a good question. I think we could perhaps.
We're not even prepared, are we?
We could talk certainly about our favorite subject. We could talk about our favorite subject. XRP.
Usually, just for the audience to know, usually we discuss previously, or sometimes me and Versan, we have a call. Sometimes we're gonna talk before. We're gonna make a list, and I'm gonna talk about this, and that. Today we don't really. We didn't really make it, but I guess,
I'll be honest with you guys. I feel we don't even need a list. We can really take this conversation any direction you'd like. Yeah, because we've pretty much been on top of this for years now. So,
can I bring out something on? So right now there is a really big FUD push against XRP. People actually producing videos to show that, how XRP is a bad investment, how this, how that. And it's a coordinated Bitcoin maxi FUD campaign. And what's laughable is that when you dig down into the information, just realize just how either misinformed or intentionally misinformed these people are and what they're doing. And the only digital asset with any kind of legal clarity at present, and this includes Bitcoin, by the way, in the United States is XRP. That's a fact, Jack. You cannot deny it. We have legal clarity through a federal court order. A lot of people came out and said, the SEC is going to appeal the decision that XRP is a security. They did not. I mean, the only thing they appealed was the fine. It's all about the money, right? I mean, they were going for $2 billion. I think they got 120, a judgment for 125 million, significant difference. But they never even touched on the fact that XRP in and of itself in the appeal is not a security. And I think that is one big fundamental thing when it comes to XRP. No other digital asset holds it. You're watching the current administration that's coming in. So you see Brad Garlinghouse and Stuart Alderati sitting down having dinners with Donald Trump. We know that Eric Trump and Donald Trump Jr. are XRP holders. They donate $5 million worth of XRP to Trump's inaugurational, thing there. I mean, I think that this has been probably the best setup you could ever see for XRP. And if you think that the FUD campaign isn't strategic, I mean, it's crazy. It's almost watching a movie being played out. I mean, when you just the narratives, it's just wild. Right now, like XRP over the weekend went up to what, $2.60? I think before we got on here, I was looking, it's at 246. Well, it's at 246. Wow. Bitcoin is just at 90 something, 90 some thousand or something like that right now. Yeah. Bitcoin's at under $92,000. XRP's at 246. That is a very big show of strength, at least in my opinion, guys. So anyway, what are your thoughts?
May I add something?
I would add.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead,
you can
Edo.
go ahead. No,
No, you
I
first,
would add
please.
that I'm very glad that we had this conversation, David. I also actually made a fun video this week. I really had to, where I collected a lot of content creators, which I don't know if they did that intentionally. I don't know if they were being paid to actually spread FUD. But the fact is that all of these people were telling their followers, their audience, to get rid of XRP at 60 cents, 50 cents, even at 40 cents. And if we really look simultaneously, Bitcoin was trading at about $50,000, 60,000, and it was slightly outperforming XRP. And just a few months later, we have Bitcoin at 92. So that's not even a 2x from the prices that they were telling people to actually get on BTC. Meanwhile, XRP went up over, like, at some point we were over 500%. If you go to CoinMarketCap and you set a time frame of 90 days and you start to see which coins are actually the top performing assets this bull run, well, it starts with XLM, XRP, HBAR. Most of the utility tokens that were being ashamed by these Bitcoin maxis, that they were saying there will be no interest so ever on assets like XRP. And then just a couple of days ago, we have Donald Trump having dinner with Stuart Alderoty and also Brett Garlinghouse. I just know that we were 100% correct. And I'm very glad that we were able to actually pass the message. I made so many comparisons telling people, if you put like $50,000 on Bitcoin and Bitcoin goes to 100K, well, congratulations, you just did a 2x, you know. And meanwhile, had such great alternatives with XLM below 10 cents. XRP was actually below 50 cents. It was just insane. When you look to companies like Ripple and Stellar, and you see that digital assets like XRP and XLM were like 10 cents, 40 cents. And that's why I basically went all in. And so far, that has been the greatest decision I ever made in regards to my finances. And that just shows that there is paid FUD. I don't see how these people would be putting out such bad information, actually misinformation about XRP, calling it centralized, calling it a scam. And actually, you have like Ripple that is said to be one of the greatest companies ever. So, Versan, please go ahead now with your thoughts.
My God, I got so much shit to say. Man, first of all, just align yourselves with what the regulators, the big institutions, the 1%ers are doing. You know, you can't say something is centralized when you already live in a centralized system. All right. You have pinpoint accuracy with GPS. If everything was going to be decentralized, let's be realistic. All you need is an internet connection. But not even that. The decentralization part is already thrown out because you need an IP address to even connect with the internet. That's one, or some satellite out there with pinpoint accuracy to your destination. And on top of that, you have to go through an exchange. An exchange is not centralized. And then to cash out of an exchange, you've got to go through a central authority, which is a bank. So where's the decentralization part? It doesn't exist. That's just nonsense, guys. And on top of that, as far as the FUD, the fear, uncertainty, and doubt, the resistance and the suppression of XRP is not coincidental. The SEC's lawsuit, even with Ripple, was a very calculated move to slow down the adoption and suppress awareness. The delisting of XRP from major exchanges. And what about the 1,700 non-disclosure agreements with Ripple and governments and other financial institutions? That just continues to further highlight the importance of the behind-the-scenes activity and the importance of XRP itself. Not to mention when Ripple even referred to XRP, which is a cross-border remittance protocol, as a world reserve currency on their website before quietly removing the statement. Do you remember that? The connections are clear for those who are willing to know, to look at all this stuff. So, you know, I don't buy into the fear, uncertainty, and doubt, guys. You know me, I don't listen to the noise. I haven't even checked the XRP price in over 2 weeks, okay, because I don't care. I know what I've done. I know how I've positioned myself. I am being patient. I understand how these market cycles are going to play. And I understand that the weak will get weeded out eventually. Okay. So what I find more interesting about XRP and what Ripple is trying to accomplish is the relationship that they have with central banks that also are aligning with this shift. If you guys are familiar with Basel III regulations from the Bank for International Settlements, requires banks to hold substantial reserves of physical gold. And the future is not about physical. I get that. It's about digital. And XRP fits the bill to through RippleNet to enable central banks that align with the Basel III regulations to tokenize physical assets like gold through stable coins. They're tokenizing bonds, they're tokenizing debt, and that provides stability to currencies, that provides stability to the economy in the long run of things. So XRP effectively is acting as the reserve currency for a tokenized economy. And that's really, that's the reality of XRP. You want to be part of the wealth transfer as everything goes digital. It has to be running on a scalable, secure, immutable blockchain protocol. And that's what you're investing in. It's not really a currency. I think you're acquiring a piece of the infrastructure, building the rails for pretty much where all this value is going to move on. And that's what XRP is to me. So I don't even look at the markets anymore, guys. I pay attention more to the narratives around freedom, because I think
it's the protocol.
Yeah, sure. But as we're being bridged into a digital system, the thing that concerns me more is about the our liberties, our freedoms, right?
I would like to touch on that, because you had said something about, to say anything's decentralized in a centralized world is insanity. But this is the narrative that they have put out there. And privacy, genuine privacy, is a total illusion. Because look, our vehicles now, whether it's you're getting Ford, GM, it doesn't matter, Mercedes, BMW, it does not matter what vehicle, their technology is built right into those things with just GPS, but not even GPS alone. Look at all the new vehicles they're installing inward cabin facing cameras in the new video. And I was down at a dealer looking at one, and they were saying, oh, well, that's if you wanted to do Zoom meetings. I'm like, come on, you guys, you must think we're insane that we're going to sit and do Zoom meetings in our vehicles, that everyone needs a camera looking inside the cabin. The reality is they want to see, okay, what are your driving habits? That information's being sold to insurance companies, on and on and on. And of course, they have access to that information in an accident situation. Well, who was driving? Well, someone said, oh, they were driving. Oh, no, they weren't. The camera shows this. That information is available. When I worked as a federal officer, we could get things ex parte by issuing what's called a requirement to provide information. Public companies gather more information on us than the government does. And the government is not, they have access to it. These companies have to comply. This whole thing where they're spreading this fear, one of the things they're using to kind of scare people away from getting into this space is, oh, you'll lose your privacy, you'll lose your autonomy and all that. Guys, it's already gone. If you think that you have it right now, you're kidding yourself. Every one of these that you have, almost every application on it requires to know your location, including your calculator. Now tell me, why does your calculator need to know where you're standing in a 3 feet radius? But that's the way it is. If you want to use the applications, you agree to those things. So Versan's absolutely right. This whole idea of scaring people away from this space because, oh, we're going to lose this privacy and autonomy. The fact of the matter is we don't have it anyway. So you may as well look at, okay, how can I profit and really put myself in a position where I can actually achieve goals in life by being a participant in this change that is absolutely coming. And what it ultimately will lead to, well, maybe it's going to lead to some sort of, totalitarian type of thing. But in the meantime and in between time, I want to be involved in this situation where, hey, look, I'm going to occupy till he comes, as the word says, but that, we can benefit from being ahead of the curve. Most people are absolutely, completely, and totally oblivious to the change that's coming, and they are going to be subservient to it, but you can position yourself where you do not have to be kind of like a victim of it. You can be a driver in it. At least that is how I've looked at it. Edo, did you put this up, or did you put this up, Versan?
I put it up.
No, yeah,
I want Edo. Sorry, yeah, I put this up. I want Edo to finish his thoughts first, and then I'll discuss
Yeah,
this
thanks.
document.
I love what you said, David. And I had this conversation with you the other day. I think we were on private, not on camera. And the fact is that right now we have two choices, right? Or I have said this so many times, or you're going to be a late adopter or you become an early investor. And by the way the world is evolving, I really think it's going to be like pay to play. So you need to become wealthy so you can bypass the majority of the bullshit they're going to throw at you, because basically if you build financial freedom you can always make your way. And as we were discussing, for example, think about all the controls they make to you on the airport by forcing you to be scanned on things that are actually harmful to your health. You can't even bring a bottle of water. Now, why is that? If you have a private jet, you can actually bypass all of that bullshit. And same during what happened in 2019, which I will not even mention here because I don't want the video to be taken down. Because basically, what they are telling you, if you become rich, you can bypass the majority of the bullshit. So I really think the focus now should be to make money. I'm not saying money is the most important thing in life. I'm just saying that right now money buys you some degree of freedom, and if you want freedom, I think the best alternative right now is to get invested in digital assets. Now there is a quick comment I want to address. Someone says if we can talk about the clawback futures on the XRP and how we can actually protect our XRP. I think that's a very interesting question, so I want to address that. The XRP ledger, it's also called the RPCA, Ripple's Consensus Protocol algorithm. It really doesn't have a clawback feature towards your XRP. So if you have your XRPs sitting on cold wallets, there's nobody that can actually claw your XRP backs. However, the reason why there's a clawback feature is because that's for CBDC purposes, for the stablecoin,
Yes.
so they can claw back,
Yes.
for example, real stablecoin, or they can claw back any asset that is issued on top of the
Yeah,
XRP
it's not
ledger that
XRP.
doesn't have-
It's not. Yeah.
yeah, they can't claim the digital asset they can't really claim is XRP, and you have to understand that that really came with the purpose of CBDCs. That's why there is a clawback feature. So I'm very neutral about that. I understand that's required for mass adoption. That's required for the banks to actually adopt the XRP ledger as a remittance protocol. However, the XRP is safe. You don't really have to worry about that. And I would also to address on what Versan said before. Although I totally agree that there is some level of decentralization, but if we have to be very honest, and I know that's not very popular, it's not 100% decentralized. I mean, it's far more decentralized than Bitcoin. However, there is some degree of centralization on the XRP ledger, and we have to be honest here. And I think that's beneficial for adoption in regards to financial institutions adopting XRP, for example, as a reserve currency. Because I would put, for example, imagine if it was 100% decentralized. Tomorrow, the validators vote a new amendment, and they can actually burn the escrow. And the escrow is built to ensure XRP is a reserve currency. So that actually prevents that type of sabotage, let's say, that would prevent XRP to become the universal currency. So I think it's very like a difficult discussion because I am pro decentralization, but I have to be realistic, and it's not 100% decentralized. However, it has a degree of decentralization, as anyone can build on top of the XRP ledger. It remains a permissionless blockchain.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Versan. I want to hear your take on this because it's really interesting.
My God, I have so many takes. I just think I still don't believe in a decentralization thing. If there is going to be, I know there's a clash between what people want as decentralization and, of course, what the institutions want. The problem is the fact that all our financial institutions have co-opted the space already. Okay. Right. They've also weaponized their tools like the SEC to accomplish this. It's very possible that maybe BlackRock and Vanguard do have a plan up their sleeves to co-opt this financial landscape, and nothing has really changed. It's hard to explain, but I don't think there's going to be a decentralized aspect to any of this, and that's why you buy gold really, or physical assets. But people are like, well, how are we supposed to barter and trade with physical gold? It's not practical. I understand that. But if you like do more research into BlackRock and what some of these other experts have spoken about, and I'm talking about the real experts, not your mainstream nonsense, okay? They have been able to come to the same conclusions, that all of this has been co-opted by big institutions, right? And that's very problematic, because it seems that they're putting these systems into place where if you do not participate, you are excluded from the system. So, you know, to some degree, you have to have some skin in the game. We do believe that, you know, these technologies, no doubt, are building the infrastructure. So there is potential for mass wealth generation as everything is digital and put onto these distributed ledger technologies. The key is, like, what do you do with your money, right? When I took an $87,000 profit, I was able to quickly take that money and buy hard assets, right, which have now appreciated. So that's typically what I do. Food, water, other resources. For me, that is currency, right? Water is currency for me. We are already hearing about resource problems in California, and I believe that in the next 5 years, they're going to orchestrate this resource problem at a global scale. And that's how they've already managed to weaponize the food industry. So all of this stuff ties in together to where they're trying to take us, a technocratic society. Elon Musk is not your friend, ladies and gentlemen. People believe all this nonsense about him. Yeah, somebody who wears a cross upside down for Halloween, keeps it on his profile for 1 year. People who are buying into the Trump narrative as well. Trump answers to the central banks. I'll tell you one thing. If he's going to make any changes, you know, people are going to have to be the result of that change. So it all starts from within. I think all this, these narratives around freedom and liberty that are dominating the public discourse right now, the reality actually tells a very different story, because every day our personal freedoms are being eroded by the day. Take the geopolitical shifts, for example, with Trump's potential return to office. We're already seeing massive financial moves, including billions being funneled into Israel, for instance, right? And I have nothing against Israel, but I have something against the people who are hiding behind the flag of Israel, if you know what I'm talking about. So a lot of the narratives that we see, and this is from the Q guys, right? It's a very calculated resurfacing of very old truths. And this is why I call it a late awakening, not a great awakening. And they have been repackaged to fit the modern agendas. So people who believe that they're waking up are being leaned towards a new false narrative, a false liberty, and a false messiah even. And they're presenting this as a fight for freedom, but I promise you much of it is theater, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, that's my macro take on the whole decentralization part.
I totally agree. And they brought this figure of Elon Musk, which, you know, he kind of became a very popular figure, but that's just a way for make people to accept that we are moving towards a technocracy. That's really the way that it's going. I really think that at some point they really want to get rid of elected politicians, right? I don't think that the population really has a choice at the moment. Take the Union European, for example, and most of the people taking decisions for Europe, they were never voted by the people. They were never really elected. The Angela Merkel's and all of these globalist puppets. And I have to be very careful with my words here. Otherwise, you're going to end up being censored by YouTube. However, we are really moving towards technocracy, and just think about how they are treating the population. Come on, they are taxing the population like slaves. That's the reality. They have no justification to tax the way they are taxing people. What's really the point to tax your crypto gains? I mean, think for a second. If you make a trading mistake and you lose 100% of your portfolio, they assume it's your fault. They don't give you any refund. It's your responsibility. But suddenly you make gains, and now they want to tax your crypto gains.
Well, and they want to tax unrealized. Yeah.
The unrealized crypto gains. It's really taxing the population.
Insane.
It's modern day slavery.
Yeah. And, you know, just to pivot one more time, guys, I really believe, you know, politicians will say whatever the hell they need to say in order to get you to buy the narrative, to take the bait. I see this shit every 4 years. I'm not from this country. I grew up in Saudi Arabia. I grew up in Dubai. I've seen the world for what it is. By the way, America has a very distorted view on how the world really works. Okay. And in the US, what I've witnessed and from the information I've gotten, the people I've spoken to today, and some of the smartest people I know agree with me on this. We are, including you guys, we are witnessing two major shows. One, on the surface, there's the political drama that captivates the public attention. Underneath everything, there's a far more significant and sinister agenda at play. And the ultimate goal is not about the preservation of democracy. We talked about this months ago, Edo and David, when I said that they would come in and do the Cloward pivot strategy in order to collapse the system from within, bring somebody new in order to bring the United Nations in to do political reform. And this is happening in every country around the world, but nobody's paying attention to it. They're all mixed up in the hype of XRP and digital assets. Here we are embracing the technology that is essentially going to take us into this new system.
That's true.
Yeah.
We are embracing the technology that we know for a fact. I mean, if you looked at it, like, I'm a person of faith, most people know that. From a prophetic point of view, this is literally the fulfillment of what we would classify as a mark of the beast system, ultimately being developed. But even in that capacity, and Edo had brought this out, is that, look, in the meantime, we do have that ability to not become a victim to the system, but for as long as we can. Look, I remember when I went down to do my immigration interview in Montreal, and I was flying from Vancouver. It was the height of when this was going on, And I decided, because this was a monumental event for us, I was going to fly first class, So I get on this first class flight. Once we were on the flight and everything like that, the rules for people sitting in first class did not apply like they did to the rules of people sitting in coach, where everyone had to, be like this. In first class, those things were coming off. And nobody said boo about it. And that just shows you, like, there is a class distinction. And this is absolutely something that, they are, and in a way, it's a way of dividing, the classes and controlling people. It's a different mechanism of control. And this is how they go about doing it. And you're right. There's the surface narrative, but then there's the undercurrents of what's really going on. And we know for a fact, that these things are coming in. They are coming to a swift conclusion, and it is literally following an absolutely, I mean, I don't know how a person could deny it, biblical narrative. When I was an underground economy officer, I remember investigating, the underground economy, what we would call the black market and all this and that, because a lot of finances go through that. And I had did that in special enforcement from 2008 to about 2011, somewhere in that neighborhood. Anyway, I remember thinking to myself, as a believer at that point, I'd be like, how are they going to implement a system where the rich and the poor, the slave and the free, and all these different people can't buy or sell? Because there's always been an underground economy. Well, back then, there was no, blockchain-based distributed ledger technology type system going on. It started to be introduced with the introduction of Bitcoin. But now it's gone so mainstream that we know for a fact that all these governments have been behind it. And who created Bitcoin? Come on. It wasn't Satoshi Nakamoto. That's a bunch of hogwash. That's utter bananas. And more than likely it was a government orchestrated nefarious, and we have evidence to that, but rather than get into all those details. But that is, to me, is the biggest rug pull of all, because, that was just to kind of get people psychologically prepared for what I believe they have coming. And so, there's some things we can control and there's other things that we can't control. But in the meantime, what can we do to preserve the freedom and liberty that we have, at least for as long as we have it? Now, Judy and I have decided, listen, we'll participate in this space until we have to, until they want to put something in us or on us. And after that, we're out. We're not going to do it.
It's really for the next generation, though. I think this narrative of being RDIF chipped and the merging between technology and human biology, that's like the next phase.
Elon Musk wants to bring that in, like you said, Versan, and that is not a friend of humanity, if you ask me.
No, of course not. And those are the real dangers that we have to look ahead. I think technology is rapidly growing. I get that. There are pros and cons to everything, but the scary thing is that we are losing more of our soul as we believe we are more connected when we're not.
Right.
Technology is going to be the end of us to a degree. And some of these technocratic elite, they believe this stuff. They're
Yeah.
not humanists. They do believe in excluding the human population. And
Right.
sadly, from the other side of this story, you're going to see a lot of people in the comments. I already know this, that they're going to talk about Trump is removing the deep state. Trump is doing this and that. Well, I don't think they're doing it the right way if that really is the case, because
Yeah.
some people have actually told me in the space that, oh, some catastrophic event like a nuclear bomb going off needs to occur for us to wake up. I disagree with that. You don't have to go kill and impoverish an entire class
Absolutely
of people
not,
to prove
yeah.
a point. There are right ways to do these kind of things. People need justice. If you want to inspire the human population to rise up and wake up and find out who they really are, that's within the compassion part that we're all missing, the soul.
Yeah.
And for that to be accomplished, people need to be inspired by seeing justice. How come Bill Gates is still walking around? Why is Anthony Fauci still over there, right? All these technocratic guys from the World Economic Forum, Elon Musk included, these people are not saints. They're playing the role of saints. There are a lot of people who love Russell Brand, for instance. Russell Brand was dating Klaus Schwab's daughter or a Rothschild's daughter. I'm not even joking. He had a relationship with them. These guys are professional actors. They know exactly what they're doing. They know how naive and gullible people still are. And that's what I was trying to say. All these old truths are being resurfaced to convince people that, oh, change is coming. No, that's how they buy you into taking the new bullshit. Okay. So that's the reality of the situation.
But I do believe there is hope in.
Of course,
I
I am not doom and gloom, guys. I'm optimistic. I want to talk to the audience now. Is that not doom and gloom? We're very optimistic. We just try to teach people the strategies, how to be in and out, and of course, how to position yourself. But if we are indeed going to this technocratic society, the way I would see people to really invest their money, sure, invest in the technologies that are building the infrastructure because of the potential wealth transfer, but make sure that you're not keeping all your money in digital infrastructure. There are pros and cons to this. Invest in hard assets, right? I put thousands of dollars into water to just make sure that I don't go thirsty if there is a resource problem. And I think that's really what currency is. Currency is assets, and that's what the 1%ers are doing too. So if the 1%ers are buying assets with the profits they're taking, maybe we should align our thinking with them. Because they obviously know what they're doing. So
I would say, and to add to, because I think the line of thought that you got there is tremendously, and that we've had our conversations versus on off of these, and we both are, and we have a lot of congruence there. And the one thing I was thinking is like, look, the greatest commodity that all of us have, believe it or not, is time. Time is the one thing that, I'm 57 years old. I oftentimes say I have more life behind me than I do ahead of me. I'm probably on the home 20, the home 30 if statistically I live till I'm 87 years of age, of course. And this is a huge, huge deal. A lot of people treat everything that we do, all the investments that we're making in this life, as if somehow it's eternal. And it's not, and things could change on a dime. And this is where your internal constitution has to be absolutely rock solid. And, with the way in which they've conditioned this current generation of people through social media and social engineering and all that, is that, their confidence and assurance and conviction in life can literally change on a moment with situational ethics, with whether or not you get the right level of affirmation from social media, this and that. And you can see it in this digital asset space, whether you're holding the right assets or you're not, or whatever, and on and on. The affirmation that you get, and and also the the condemnation that you get, and things like that. And so, when you think of it from that perspective, and you want to be really strategic as an investor, in my mind, it's not the outward influences that really make that difference. It's the internal constitution. And you start thinking about, okay, if I'm going to plan out my situation, what is the end goal here? Is it wealth? Is it riches? Because I'll tell you what, you can have wealth and riches and still not have liberty, peace, freedom, assurance, or any of those things that we value so much, and we hope that it'll help to bring us. if you don't have I believe, and I think you've said this too, Versan, at various times. Usually if you get wealthier, it actually just accentuates what's already in there, right? Like, so if you're a greedy person when you're poor, you'll be a greedy person when you're wealthy. If you're a giving person when you're poor, you'll probably be a better giver when you're wealthy. And
Amen.
and this is where, you know, working on the internal constitution, and also I think another big thing about that is what you're really talking about is keep your eyes open. You're really encouraging people, hey, eyes wide open. Don't just acquiesce to the narrative. And because of that, develop, you know, because a lot of people have no apologetic. And that's just basically, okay, what do you believe? But furthermore, why do you believe it? Because look, you just have a conversation with them and they can't even get, you're literally hearing the fifth estate coming right out of their tongue. And so, and they have dumbed us down, intentionally dumbed us down with social, so that critical thinking is actually criticized. It's actually criticized, and there's punitive. We can't say what we want right on this platform, because if we did, powers that be would shut us down that fast.
Yeah.
And so this is where, I'm just adding to what you're saying.
I want to add one more thing, guys. Like I've actually tried to have these conversations in the past. Like I've never said what I said on camera like this. I never thought I would, but about how the whole Trump narrative and whatnot, and just a lot of this stuff coming out, and how we have to be mindful that we're being played to a degree, while still truths are coming out, because you could share 90% truth with someone, but if you distort that 10%, probably the most critical part, the whole thing is another deception. And that's what they've done. I've tried having these conversations with many people in the XRP space. And, you know, these are some of the bigger XRP influencers in this space. And because of these discussions, they've turned their back on me, calling me doom and gloom, excluding me from projects and certain things, saying that I haven't pretty much wakened up yet. The funny thing is I'm far more awake than they realize, and that they are. And they are buying into narratives, and they're selling bullshit to you guys a lot of the time. I will teach you about the technology. I will teach you about the pros and cons of this revolution, this financial revolution, and how things are actually playing. But I will always keep you aware of the things you do need to be concerned about, the cons to all of this. So it's really sad. And, you know, sometimes Vendel and I, we can't have these discussions publicly because a lot of our own community has turned on us for real. And I've shared this with you guys off record. So that's something you should be careful for, because I think if people have to, and some of these guys read off teleprompters too to talk. If somebody's reading off a teleprompter, let me tell you something, they're not giving you information. Okay. They're just reading off a freaking teleprompter. It means they don't know what the hell they're talking about. So I can free ball this whole conversation if I had to. But yeah, guys, you know, I just want you to be mindful of some of the propaganda that's being put out there. And just be careful, right? I'm close to
good
God.
Information. It's good information, and it's a good encouragement. And I think it, you know, I oftentimes throw this out there. Look, as iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens a man. The whole goal of what we do here is to help people become sharper, more aware. Whether, you know, you can lead a horse to water, as they say, you can't make them drink. We can share what we know. We can share it with passion. We can share it with conviction. We can't give them that confidence that goes with it. I oftentimes say that. And the best encouragement we can give you guys out there right now, talking to the audience, is be very conscientious about, you know, what you're doing, but why you're doing it. Like, and what is that going to lead to? Be strategic in your thinking. Do not just, just consume absolutely everything as if it's, you know, gospel truth, and not go out there and do the research like Versan and Edo and myself and others have done. It's so vitally, vitally important. And I think I can resonate. I think that's absolutely fantastic. I think that's the right perspective to have, Versan. And I could care less who at the end of the day decides whether they're going to like us or not like us because of it. Because, you know, in my estimation, you know, at some point, you know, there's this scripture that says, hey, if you know that the house is burning down, so to speak, and you don't go out and warn people about the fire, then their blood is on your hands. And I think that's what we're really wanting to encourage people to think about that. And I think, in all honesty, in a good way too.
It's true. I'd rather have a real conversation than artificially.
Absolutely.
Edo, what do you think? We've had these discussions off record many times.
Well, I can't really say 100% of what I would share off camera, but briefly touching on Donald Trump, let's say that if tomorrow or any day at this year he comes on public, he doesn't really need to shut down the Federal Reserve. For me, it's enough he goes out on public and say that people should stop consuming seed oils and perhaps dedicate some times to actually understand the role of minerals in the human brain. I would perhaps apologize on public. I would make a video and say I was wrong. Well, jokes aside, I do think that there is a narrative and most people are not really paying attention. I know it's not very popular. However, I really wish we were not spot on about this. I really wish that a week from now, Donald Trump's going to get in power. The world's economy is going to actually blow up. It's going to actually go on the right direction. Inflation is going to disappear. But we know that's not the case. I mean, as much as I wish, and of course, I have more sympathy for Republicans than I do for Democrats. I think that's quite obvious. I'm not falling for the narrative. From my perspective, we really need to look for the head of the snake, and the head of the snake is central banks and unlimited printing currency devaluation. That's what's happening right now. However, I think it's important to look that when a force goes, I don't really know how to say this in English. I have this on Italian in my mind, but let me try to rephrase it. When something goes towards one direction, there is always a force that goes on the opposite direction. That's kind of an universal law. So the fact that right now there is all this government control taking place, CBDCs and all of that we spoke on this live stream, I also think that's a unique opportunity right now going on the other direction. And I just think about, I think I speak for the three of us, that we are really building generational wealth here. And by doing the right decisions, by asking the right questions, by actually going against the official narrative, well, we are thriving. I think we are outperforming 99% of all the educated people out there who are actually working on regular jobs. And by the script, they should be outperforming us, but it's actually the other way around. So I think when we have such things like this one here, it's actually, it can be a gun pointed against your head, but it can also be a powerful tool that you can use to actually buy more time, which is a currency. You can actually work from anywhere in the world. You can actually use this in a smart way so that you're going to make more money instead of being controlled by these devices, which, by the way, they are designed to control you, but you do have a choice. I think it's biblical. I mean, we can look from a religious perspective. We can look from, I think it's called 10,000 might fall by your side, but it will not touch you. I think that's really powerful. I think we always have a choice. And that's why I remain more optimistic than ever. I think I'm having the best time of my life in the past years. And I actually arrived here by not following the narrative. I think all of the scarcity, all of the inflation, the currency devaluations, they will not touch us if we actually first have faith that we are taking the right decisions, and second, if we just don't follow the narratives and we go against what 99% of people are doing. It's very easy. You look from a health perspective. If you do what they tell you, guess what? You are sick. If you go against the official narrative and you start to really comprehend what is making you sick, removing certain foods from your diet, and you suddenly become a more healthy person, you can do the same with your wealth. You just do the opposite. You buy precious metals, you buy real estate, you buy water, you buy land, you invest in the right digital assets. And I think that's the recipe for thrive on the long term. That's my message.
Agreed. I'll close just a final statement. Saw some comments that I should certainly quickly address. Number one, they said Trump was going to shut down the Federal Reserve. Well, let me tell you, the Federal Reserve was already designed to collapse under the weight of its own pressure and debt. But at a time of their choosing, what do I mean by this? Once they've consolidated enough wealth and control over the people, because what do central banks essentially do? They print money out of thin air, and they use that money to trickle it up to the 1% to 2%ers so they can buy the assets that you can't afford to hold on to because they devalued the currency. So you're selling assets because you have to pay higher goods and services. So the Federal Reserve was always going to collapse. So when Ron Paul and Donald Trump talk about shutting down the Federal Reserve, that's bullshit, because it was going to collapse anyways. And they knew this, but the people don't know it because they're not financially literate. So they can get away with lying to you about that. See what I'm talking about? That's one. The second thing, Trump is going to shut things down. Well, once again, here we go. U.S. corporation is already insolvent. U.S. corporation is already dissolved. Okay. So what do you mean he's going to shut it down? They were going to shut it down inevitably when the right time came, again, of consolidating wealth and power, because the United Nations is behind 90% of what you're seeing happening right now today all over the world. And guess who's behind the UN? The Vatican. And I'm not kidding about that. Still, till this very day, saying that Trump moved gold from the Vatican back to the US, that's irrelevant. And who gives a shit? Central banks move gold all the time around the world. What does that have to do with the underlying problems that we have not talked about? We'll save that for another discussion. As far as XRP, somebody asked about the price. The price of XRP is going to reflect the institutional demand that it was designed to build for, and to settle all those transactions, bridge those financial ecosystems, bridge digital currencies, et cetera, et cetera. So the price will eventually reflect once regulation comes, I believe. And 2025 is big for regulation. It aligns with the ISO compliance, which is just an update for the banking system. It also aligns with the Basel III requirements for central banks, the end of 2025. Also aligning with Trump deregulating the banking system to allow Wall Street to merge with the banking sector. That requires regulation. So regulation is going to be the thing that actually kicks these things off. And eventually, once utility is there, it will reflect for the demand it was designed to handle. So that's how I'm going to end this video. And yeah, guys, I do want to send my prayers one more time to the California residents, people who were affected by that. And just know I'll send my prayers for you guys. And, you know, I love you all. A lot of our listeners are from California. So, yeah, guys, thank you.
Well, yeah, I just like to say that, you know, I love you guys and this community. And I think anybody that's watching, you know, this show or our channels, I think you're getting, you know, people that are genuinely do care, really want to see you succeed to the best. And, you know, these are our thoughts. These are our opinions of, you know, what we've experienced and why we believe what we believe. And just I would encourage you, go out there and, you know, take that time it takes to kind of peel back the onion and get those convictions for yourself. But I also, you know, would just encourage people to be just as critical thinking as you possibly can be, like Bersan and Edo and I in this podcast anyway, and many of our podcasts are encouraging you to do, because I think that's where you'll see the greatest benefit. XRP, you guys know I'm a 100% believer in what it can accomplish. It's made such a difference in our lives already. And I think it's just going to continue to be a big driver in the future global economy. That's what I would have to say.
Amen. We know what to do, guys. So
XRP hasn't even scratched the surface yet. So I want to send a special thanks for the audience. We have almost 6,000 people who are actually watching us live now. So my final message is always be careful with scammers on the comment sections. They will try to actually deceive you on actually getting your cryptocurrency. So be very aware. We're not going to contact anyone privately, not on the YouTube comments as well. Be very mindful. You have to always look for the verified account. And from my side, that's everything. Thank you, everyone. And we're going to see you next week.
Take care. Thanks, guys.